She walked onto a plane with $4 billion that didn't belong to her. She never walked off, and 9 years later, nobody has found her. In Sofia, Bulgaria, October 25, 2017, the morning is cold, the sky is bruised gray, and the rain hasn't stopped since the night before. Inside Sofia International Airport, the usual rhythm of a Tuesday morning plays out. Tired commuters, rolling luggage, the low hum of departure announcements echoing off the terminal walls. Nobody pays particular attention to the woman moving through the crowd. She's unhurried, poised, dark designer sunglasses on, despite the fact that there isn't a ray of sunlight within miles. She checks no bags. She travels with no entourage, no assistants pulling trolleys behind her, no bodyguards flanking her left and right the way they used to. Just a woman moving quietly through a crowd, carrying only what she needs. She hands her boarding pass to the gate agent without a word. Ryanair flight FR 0543, Sofia to Athens, one way. She walks through the gate. She boards the plane. The plane lands in Athens 90 minutes later, and she is simply not on it. No passport flagged at Greek border control, no hotel check-in, no phone call, no trace of any kind. As if somewhere over the Aegean Sea, she opened a door in the sky and stepped out into nothing. 3 million people across 100 countries are about to wake up and realize the woman they trusted with everything they had is gone, and with her, somewhere between $4 and $5 billion, depending on who's counting. This is the story of Ruja Ignatova, PhD, polyglot, fraudster, fugitive, the crypto queen. And as of today, in 2026, nearly 9 years after that flight, she remains the only woman on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list, with a $5 million reward that nobody has collected. But to understand how one woman could do this to millions of people across the entire globe, you first have to understand something that makes most of us deeply uncomfortable. You have to understand why they gave her the money in the first place. Take your mind back to 2014. Ruja Ignatova is 34 years old. She's Bulgarian-born, German-educated, and carries herself with the kind of effortless authority that makes strangers instinctively step aside in corridors. She has a doctorate in European private law from the University of Freiburg. She speaks German, English, Bulgarian, and enough of several other languages to hold a room. She dresses like she was born in a boardroom and smiles like she's already 3 moves ahead of everyone in it. What she does not have, and this is crucial, is a single day of experience in cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, or financial markets of any meaningful kind. What she has instead is something far more powerful. She understands people. Specifically, she understands the quiet desperation that lives inside ordinary people who have worked hard their entire lives and watched the world's wealth flow relentlessly in every direction except theirs. She understands that if you give that person a stage and a story and a number with enough zeros behind it, and if you make them feel deep in the pit of their stomach that they are standing at the edge of a once-in-a-generation opportunity, they will follow you almost anywhere. In 2014, she stood on a stage in London and said words that would echo around the world for the next decade. Bitcoin had its moment, but Bitcoin is old. Bitcoin is complicated. Bitcoin is for insiders. What I have built is for everyone. She called it OneCoin, and the room believed her. Not because the technology was convincing, not because the numbers stacked up under any serious scrutiny. They believed her because she made them feel something that no bank, no financial advisor, no government had ever made them feel before. Like they were the ones who were going to win this time. OneCoin spread like fire spreads through dry grass, not through advertising, not through tech conferences or Wall Street endorsements. It spread through people, through the fundamental human impulse to share something good with the people you love. It moved across dinner tables and church halls. It lived in WhatsApp groups and late-night phone calls. A retired teacher in Birmingham told her neighbor over tea. A pastor in Lagos told his congregation on a Sunday morning. A factory worker in rural Vietnam told his entire extended family on a single phone call. And every single one of them believed, genuinely deeply believed, that they were handing their savings to the future. Within 12 months, OneCoin was operating in 100 countries. Within 2 years, it had taken in more money than most nations' entire gross domestic product. And not one coin, not one blockchain record, not one line of verifiable code existed anywhere in the world to back any of it. But that reveal was still coming. First, Ruja had a machine to build, and what she built next was something so audacious, so coldly brilliant in its design, that even the people who eventually brought it down couldn't help but acknowledge what it was. By 2016, Ruja Ignatova wasn't just running a company, she was running a religion. And like any religion worth its name, it had temples, it had a congregation, it had the kind of devotion that doesn't ask questions, because asking questions feels like betrayal. The temples were football stadiums filled to capacity with investors who had flown in from across the world, some of them spending the last of their disposable income on the plane ticket alone, just for the privilege of being in the same room as her. The screens blazed, the music surged, a roar went through the crowd as she walked out into the lights, and it wasn't the polite applause of a business conference, it was the sound of true believers, of people who had already handed over their savings and desperately needed the woman in front of them to be real. She wore diamonds that would have bought a family home outright in most of the cities her investors came from. She arrived at events on private jets and left on yachts. She dined in restaurants where the bill for one table exceeded the annual salary of the people she was addressing. And the message was never spoken aloud. It didn't need to be. The message was simply her standing there in the lights, proof made flesh that the promise was real, that the money was real, that the dream was real. Look at what OneCoin built for me. Now imagine what it's building for you. And the investors poured more in. A retired couple in Hong Kong liquidated their pension without a second conversation. A farmer in Uganda sold land his grandfather had cleared with his own hands. A young couple in Stuttgart cashed in the savings account they had opened the week their first child was born. Normal people, careful people, people who had never gambled a day in their lives. People who believed completely and without reservation that they were making the smartest financial decision of their generation. Now, I need you to stop, because right here, at the peak of Ruja's empire, at the exact moment the money was flowing faster than her team could process it, I need you to tell you what was actually sitting underneath all of it. There was no blockchain. Blockchain technology, the foundation that every legitimate cryptocurrency in existence is built upon, was completely absent from OneCoin. Not underdeveloped, not flawed, absent. It did not exist. What existed instead was a spreadsheet. A basic, unremarkable database where Ruja's team manually entered numbers and called them coins. When investors logged into their accounts and saw their portfolio growing, when they refreshed their screens and watched the value climb, what they were actually watching was a human being somewhere in an office changing a number in a column. That's it. No mining, no code, no currency, just a number on a screen with nothing whatsoever behind it. The entire empire, the stadiums, the jets, the diamonds, the billions was a number in a spreadsheet. And one man inside the operation had seen it from the beginning. His name was Konstantin Ignatov, Ruja's younger brother, a man she personally recruited, personally trained, and personally trusted with the inner mechanics of everything she'd built. In private meetings, away from the cameras and the crowds and the blazing stadium screens, Konstantin had begun pulling key executives aside. His voice was measured, his message was not. This is smoke and mirrors, every piece of it. When this falls, and it will fall, it will take everything with it, everyone. Ruja was told. She didn't slow down, she didn't course correct, she didn't even flinch. She booked a bigger stadium, she hired better lighting, she made bigger promises and delivered them to even larger crowds. She moved the goalposts on the great exchange listing, the moment when one coin would be listed on global markets and the coins would finally, publicly, undeniably be worth what she'd always promised, pushing it forward quarter by quarter, always just around the corner, always almost here. Just hold a little longer. The best is coming. And the people held. While they held, the bodies of damage accumulated quietly out of sight of the stadiums and the private jets. In the north of England, a woman in her 50s sat alone in a house that felt smaller every day. She had put in everything she had, every pound of savings she had spent decades building. And as the cracks began showing, as the message boards began to fill with people asking increasingly panicked questions that nobody official would answer, she began to understand, in the slow and terrible way that real understanding sometimes works, what had been done to her. She couldn't carry it. She took her own life. Her family has asked for privacy. I won't use her name, but I will not move past her quickly, because the speed at which we pass people in stories like this is part of how the enormity of what happened gets lost. She was a real person. She trusted a woman who knew exactly what she was doing, and she isn't here anymore. By mid-2017, the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit and German federal prosecutors had independently assembled enough evidence to move. Warrants were being drafted, arrest orders were in preparation. The machinery of justice was, at long last, grinding into motion. But somewhere in Ruja Ignatova's world, through a source nobody has ever officially identified, a message was received. They're coming. And Ruja Ignatova, who had planned for almost everything, had planned for this. She had known this moment was coming for years. Not as a fear, not as a nightmare that woke her at 3 in the morning, but as a certainty she had planned around with the same cold precision she had applied to everything else. The offshore accounts had been quietly filling for years, not hurriedly, systematically. Money moving through Dubai, the Cayman Islands, Cyprus, Switzerland, through shell companies layered inside other shell companies, each one a door that led to another door, that led to another door, until the trail became something no prosecutor could follow to its end in any reasonable time frame. New identities, allegedly prepared in advance, contacts in places that do not cooperate with Interpol. Possibly, according to sources that have never been officially confirmed, cosmetic procedures already undergone, a face already beginning its transformation into someone the world wouldn't recognize. She had built one coin like someone who always knew they were going to leave. And on the morning of October 25th, 2017, she left. The plane landed in Athens. She wasn't on it, and the world that had been chasing her ever since has found exactly nothing. There are 3 theories about where Ruja Ignatova is right now. I'm going to give them to you one at a time, because each one carries its own weight. The first theory, she's alive, comfortable, and completely unreachable. This is the theory most aligned with what the financial evidence suggests. The money moved in ways that required years of preparation and access to serious international infrastructure. Investigators believe Ruja may be living under a fully constructed new identity, new name, new papers, possibly a new face, in a jurisdiction that has no interest in cooperating with American extradition requests. Russia fits that profile. The UAE fits it too, and Ruja had long-standing financial connections to both. A woman with her resources, her preparation, and her network could disappear into either and live out the rest of her days beyond the reach of any warrant ever issued. 9 years, $5 million reward, the full machinery of the FBI and Interpol. Not a single confirmed sighting. The second theory is darker. Ruja Ignatova's world was not populated exclusively by ambitious business people and naive investors. Her financial networks in Bulgaria intersected at points with organized crime, people who helped move money across borders and expected their arrangements honored, people for whom a loose end, a woman who knew too much, who was now the most wanted financial criminal on the planet, represented an unacceptable risk. In 2019, German investigators received intelligence suggesting Ruja may have been killed. The theory has never been confirmed, no body has ever surfaced, but it has also never been fully set aside. And the very absence of any trace, no sighting, no communication, no financial footprint, feeds it. A living person, however careful, leaves marks. After 9 years, the absence of any mark at all means something. The third theory is the one that keeps investigators awake. What if she never truly disappeared? There have been sightings, a yacht tracked to a shell company in Greek waters, a woman whose description matched Ruja photographed at a private function in Athens in 2023, a photograph that Greek intelligence services apparently took seriously enough to investigate before the trail went cold again. Ruja was known to have already altered her appearance before 2017. She was meticulous about visibility. She understood how surveillance worked and how to stay one step outside it. Some investigators believe she has remained not in some distant corner of the globe, but close, watching, living quietly at the edge of the world she created, just beyond the frame of every camera pointed in her direction. And then there is this. In early 2026, the United States Department of Justice opened a $40 million victim compensation process, 9 years after her disappearance, after billions had been written off by most observers as permanently gone. Processes like that don't open without a reason. Money doesn't start moving again after 9 years of silence without someone, somewhere having found a thread. The DOJ does not announce $40 million in victim relief as a gesture of goodwill. They do it because they've recovered something, because something has moved. Whether that movement leads back to Ruja herself, nobody outside a sealed federal courtroom is saying. The people she left behind didn't get theories, they got consequences. Konstantin Ignatova was arrested at Los Angeles International Airport in March 2019. He cooperated with federal investigators, became a government witness, and in so doing effectively dismantled what remained of OneCoin from the inside. Others in the hierarchy received prison sentences measured in decades. The legal machine moved, slowly, expensively, and largely without the satisfaction that the people who needed it most were looking for. Because of the $4 billion that flowed into OneCoin from 3 million people across 100 countries, less than 1% has ever been recovered. Less than 1%. Margaret, the retired teacher from Birmingham who gave away the £84,000 she and her late husband had saved across 4 decades, never saw her money again. She sold her house in 2020. She lives with her daughter now. She doesn't talk about it much. Ruja Ignatova stole $4 billion. Somewhere tonight, in a city we don't know, under a name that isn't hers, possibly behind a face that isn't the one the FBI has on file, Ruja Ignatova is living the life she built on the rubble of everyone else's. Or maybe she isn't living at all. Stay sharp.